Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts and Ellie play film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined by May Finch.
Hi, and also my dog.
I had to give her a shout out, she was itching to be noticed. I love that about her. And of course, we have Mr. Will Rotondi.
Hey, what's going on?
For those of you who don't know, Ellie is May's dog, who is like the cutest, most amazing D&D audience member and just all around good girl.
Please insert picture here.
Well, now you got to send one. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about Roman Holiday, which is our first Milk or Wine card that we've drawn. We will be discussing if this film has indeed aged like milk or wine. We'll also, of course, be drawing a side quest, playing a little game, as is our normal tradition. But first, it's time for a film term of the day. And today we're going to be talking about the jump cut. So, according to StudioBinder.com, a jump cut is an abrupt transitional device that breaks up a continuous shot. When the shot returns, time has jumped between the two scenes. This can be done to create an artistic effect, showcasing discontinuity. So I'll include some video footage of the most famous example that comes to mind for me, and where I really learned all about this technique from a film called Run, Lola Run, which is an amazing German film, quite stressful and frantic, that uses the jump cut to great effect to kind of punctuate the urgency of the plot of the film, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it, but you should watch this movie because it's amazing. If you like really creative premises and amazing editing, then this is the movie for you. The reason this term came to mind is because the film that we're talking about today, Roman Holiday, had some very odd jump cuts, and I'm assuming we're there to smooth over maybe some continuity errors or something, but they stuck out like a sore thumb to me when I watched this movie. So
I think they're also there just to startle the audience into being awake if we got a little bit bored.
It could be. I don't know. Yeah. I know we'll get into this when we talk about our main quest, Roman Holiday, but I wondered too, some of it, if it was because they shot on location, if it was maybe like a time issue where they're like, no, we can't reset and change angles, so just go. Somebody flubbed a line. I don't know, but I'll definitely be looking that up. But are you familiar with this term, jump cut, and does it sort of ring a bell for other films that you've seen? So the best way I can describe it, and to jog the sort of the memories of my co-host here, is so imagine somebody's running at the camera straight on. So as we'll see in this clip from Run, Lola Run, and there's breaks where the person sort of suddenly is closer and closer and closer to kind of punctuate that time has sort of skipped, not an immense amount of time, but a noticeable amount of time, so that their motion is sort of or position in the camera is drastically different than where it was in the previous frame. Makes sense? Yeah,
it does. And I feel like I've probably seen examples of this, but it's one of those things where if you trying to think of a film is sort of, I don't know, it's weird. It's like my mind just goes
oh no, I couldn't tell you a single film off the top of that. I feel like it is used in action films a lot.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if it wasn't in a Fast and the Furious, John Wick, that kind of thing. But as far as other examples, maybe I'll throw a little super cut in here as well of some other examples of it, because I think it's a neat technique, and maybe it's something that stemmed from accidental use. I'd be really curious to find out who pioneered this and when it was first used to kind of for effect versus an oopsie in the continuity of the editing.
I also
oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Are you sure?
I was just gonna say, I feel like it would be something that you would see in a montage sequence. So that's what my mind went to. But I'm sorry, Meg, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's also something that you wouldn't remember, and that wouldn't stick out unless it was done in an odd way. like in Roman Holiday.
Well, cool. Thanks for indulging my term of the day. I like throwing these out here once in a while, since this podcast, first and foremost, is about discovery of film. So always good to learn about a new term, or discuss a term maybe that we're all familiar with. With that being said, let's have a side quest. Let me switch to our super fancy game board view here. And here we go. It is a throw your popcorn. Always a good time. I feel like we've all gone on this one, so no shortage. This might be the easiest one for me to like come up with an example. But
have you ever actually thrown your popcorn for one of these though?
No, like not for one of these, but as a child, one time, I'm ashamed to say, at my local cinema, I threw a gummy bear onto like the screen. Like I say child, I mean like literal child.
Onto
like,
the screen? Did it stick?
Yep. Yeah, it stuck and it melted, and it like was there for like years. Like years and years. Like I'll put it this way, I was probably like 6 or 7 when I did this. Like it was like on a little field trip, and it was like on a dare, and then I like, so much time elapsed where this gummy bear was in this theater that occasionally like I would go on a date like later on, like, and I'd be like, yeah, that was me. Not really to impress anybody, but to be like, I can't believe this fucking gummy bear is still like stuck and like melted to the screen. But yeah.
Oh my god, that was you leaving your mark on cinema.
Yeah, it's about, I guess, all I could hope for, really. So anyway, never throw my popcorn, threw a gummy bear, and yeah, it was there for much longer than you would think a gummy bear would be there. But
I have an unorthodox one.
Go for it.
We like it unorthodox here.
Unless it's unorthodox because it made me throw my popcorn the first time I watched it. And since then I've been like, wait, I actually kind of like that they did that. I matured as a viewer. So when I went to see Sorry to Bother You for the first time, have you guys seen that yet? No? Okay. It's set at this call center. Lakeith Stanfield stars in it. Tessa Thompson is like the female lead, and they're in this call center.
No more.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I would recommend it. But I was really into it. Like offbeat comedy, dark comedy, like good satire of like the economy and how call centers are run and all this kind of stuff. Until it gets to like the third act, and I won't spoil it, but it completely jumps the shark, like in a way that just completely lost me. It departs from reality, and I was pissed off because I felt like I was robbed of like a proper resolution and a proper conclusion to this story and what they'd set up. I felt like they just kind of changed the rules on you, and it didn't like make much sense to me. And then more recently I've been thinking about it and like rewatched it, and I was like, well, I kind of loved that they did that because things had gotten to such an absurd point. It kind of just makes the most sense just to put down that accelerator and just keep going into the absurdity. So I've come to appreciate it, but at the time I just felt robbed.
Was it because it felt like cheap or unearned, or was it just like it like didn't fit the vibe of the, like, I know like you gotta skirt spoilers, but
yeah, it was a vibe change for sure, but also it seemed like a leap. It was a vibe change, and like I kind of wish that like the biting satire had stayed biting instead of using like allegory. I can't say anymore without spoiling, but it leans more on allegory towards the end.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think an example of a movie that does that really well is Parasite, which we talked about on this podcast, where there's like a very big tonal shift and like, you know, a vibe change, but it feels like it's really beautifully constructed and set up for that. So now I gotta watch this and see what I think. As crazy
as Parasite gets, this is 10 times crazier.
Yeah, I get that impression. Just I can tell, like, interesting.
What
Yeah, I
what had
definitely.
you guys like heard of Sorry to Bother You previously?
Hmm. I was sad I missed it at Sunray. It's one of those
Yeah.
movies that I felt like that was my best shot at seeing it, like was in the cinema, because it seemed like that kind of movie that would have been good, like with an audience. And it's been on the list for a while. How about you, Will? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, just a trailer. And I might have actually started to watch it at some point, like when I had some free time, and then I didn't finish it and then didn't go back to it. So I'm just counting it as I haven't seen it yet because I don't think I got very far into the film. So it's still on the list, but I think that's maybe 20 minutes in a preview.
Fair. Well, I hope you do watch it, and I want to hear if you guys throw your popcorn or not.
I
Duly
will
noted.
report back. I mean, Tessa Thompson's like my current Hollywood like number one crush. Grace Kelly has the historical spot, but yeah. So you said Tessa Thompson. I was like, well, there we go. That's going right to the top of the list.
This is a tangent, but have you seen the Twitter thread that so Tessa is the goat? Um, it's just like culturally she is the goat, and also like Janelle Monáe wrote a song where that's a lyric. Uh,
Right? Agree.
and so someone did a thread of Tessa Thompson as goats on Twitter.
Oh God, that's amazing.
It's fantastic. I will send it to you later.
Please do. Love that. Is one of the goats the screaming goat?
I'm sure. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I'm sure.
Fabulous. Well, that being said, let's transition to our movie of the show, which is, of course, Roman Holiday. Since this is a May pick, May will guide us through the discussion. So take it away.
You get to hear more of my voice, which I hate, as most people do.
That's not true at all. Oh, you
Of
mean I
their
thought you
own
meant
voices.
oh, okay. I was gonna say they don't hate. Like, come on now. How what data are you pulling for that? Like, I doubt that very heavily. But yes, that is it tracks. Most people hate to hear their own voice. Luckily,
Yeah.
you don't have to edit the podcast. I do. So talk away.
Thanks, Chris. Okay. Roman Holiday is a 1953 rom-com starring Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn, the icon. It's directed by William Wyler and is a tale of a bored and sheltered princess who escapes her guardians and falls in love with an American newsman in Rome. I had not seen this film in, I want to say, like almost 10 years. So I was like definitely surprised by certain parts that I'd completely forgotten.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, what were your first impressions since neither of you had seen this before?
Yeah. So I'll say that while watching it for a pretty significant amount of time, I was like, man, it's just not doing it for me in the way that I thought it was going to. And then, like, as we got towards the back half of the film, I really started to warm to it. And then once I had some time removed from it, there's so many things that I love about this film. Namely the fact that like it's not as rom-commy as I thought it was gonna be. It does not have a conventional ending whatsoever. And I think there's just so many bits of like sweetness to it and really just smart ways that it handles things like responsibility and like human decency that I really just love. So I warmed on this movie a lot, from like going like this is a bit on the slow side and it's taken a while to get up and going. I think it's a fabulous movie, really and truly. I think you got to meet it halfway a little bit and do a little bit of thinking. It's much more intellectual and complicated than I think most people would believe, given that premise that you just sort of spelled out and the fact that it's a romantic comedy. So yeah, I mean, this is like, I think was masterful is my final take on it. I really liked it.
Well, that that is not what I was expecting to hear from you, and I'm delighted. It also exceeded my expectations on a rewatch for sure. What do you think, Will?
I actually really liked it. I didn't mind the fact that it was a slower pace. I was pleasantly surprised at the ending, just for the sake that it was unconventional and it wasn't. They didn't try, and we'll talk more about it, but they didn't try to make it tropey and what you think is going to happen, because you're like, well, it's it's Audrey Hepburn, it's Gregory Peck, you have expectations already going into this, and then it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And I was like, how very grown up of you. I appreciate this. There were just certain moments in the film that I thought this was really pleasant, not just because it tried to be, it tried to be lighthearted and goofy, and some parts were a little less so. But overall, I don't know. I was just pleasantly surprised. And having no expectation. Also, having watched it while taking a trip was nice too, because by the end of it, I was like, yeah, I get the feeling you guys have right now. You don't really want the holiday to end, and I don't really want to go back to the real world either. So we're all kind of in the same car together. But yeah, it was very pleasant.
Oh, well, I'm glad you both enjoyed it. I will say I liked it a lot more this watch than I thought I would. It's really funny having watched this last when I was like a romantic teenager, because I was pissed off at the ending. And I was like, but why can't they get their fairy tale ending? Why, she's a princess. She should be her prince and all that garbage. But I really appreciate that they didn't now, which is funny. And yeah, it's very smart. I like how layered it is, because you have this surface level, very fantastical, irrational plot, right? But there's a lot of emotional depth and heart to it that I think is what kept me watching, even during some of the slower parts. I think what I'd like to do for this one is just kind of go scene by scene as I'm recapping the plot, and then chat about those scenes, if that works for you guys.
Yeah.
Cool. So I remember feeling like kind of a sinking feeling watching this opening, because I didn't remember it opening this way. And the like meet cute as like drunk/drugged girl meets sober man who takes her home is a horrible trope, and I hate it. And so I was terrified when this started, and then relieved when Joe Bradley, Gregory Peck's character, like handled it very maturely, was clearly not into the fact that she was inebriated. In fact, was very pissed off at that fact and wanted to get rid of her, if anything. And yeah, I thought it was just kind of a more unique, mature twist on that kind of a meet cute. It still gave me a lot of anxiety at first, though. How'd you feel about it, Will?
I'd have to agree. I was actually very pleasantly surprised that he was as uncomfortable by a lot of the comments that Princess Anne slash Anya, when she finally gives her fake name, is like when she's drugged and just wants to keep laying outside, on the bench. And he's like, you need to go where the cops are going to get you. And then it's all right, well, I'll get you a taxi. And then she's like, I can't just leave you here. Maybe I'll try and leave you with the taxi driver, but that seems kind of weird too. And he's not cool with it either. It's like everybody is pleasantly like not okay with like being left with her character. The only thing I thought was, why doesn't somebody just take her to the hospital? I mean, obviously we'd have no plot at that point, but I was pleasantly surprised that when he got her back to his place, he was not cool with the fact that she asked him to help undress her. He kind of started for like a moment, like a split second, then he was like, you can handle the rest, I'm good, and I'm like, thank you. I'm glad that you're not okay with that, and so it was very pleasant that there were certain moments that for the comedy or just for the, that it was supposed to be funny and he was supposed to be uncomfortable and he was uncomfortable by it, that it was, it was nice with that. And then when he's trying to like get her to get into the couch as opposed to the bed, which he should have known she was going to take anyway. But, yeah, I think the whole thing just in and of itself, which is weird that they drugged her to begin with and didn't like have somebody just keep an eye on her. But again, no plot. So I'll leave it at that. But those are my thoughts regarding that whole exchange.
Yeah. Oh God. Ellie is also upset that they drugged her.
I'm sure she doesn't like drugs either.
She really does it.
Don't poke me. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, to make it clear to anyone who hasn't seen the film, basically she goes into quote unquote hysterics because she's just fed up with the job she has to do. She's very young. She acts like she's maybe 17, 18, maybe young 20s and just sheltered, but she's a young princess. And hates all the duty that has been on her shoulders and just wants to get away from it and starts kind of throwing a tantrum. And so the doctor comes in and just sedates her. And before it kicks in, she decides to run away. And by the time it has kicked in, she's on this lonely bench in the middle of Rome where Joe Bradley finds her.
So yeah, I'm accustomed to a lot of Hitchcock films, and there's two scenes that play out very differently. One in Notorious, where Cary Grant takes her out for a drive, which is like the most irresponsible thing. And then there's Scotty in Vertigo, where he has no problem undressing her, and like the implications are wild in that movie, where she gets up and she's naked and her clothes are drying by the fire, and it's like, yeah, what happened there, buddy? So also was pleasantly surprised that it was a more respectful, lighthearted scene as well. I think it's played for laughs a little bit, that he's sort of saddled with this responsibility, and something that's kind of an annoyance to him very soon will become his meal ticket, or so he thinks anyway, given the financial problems that he's having. It's also kind of adorable to see, like the signs of the times, where the sort of perceptions of having like a woman in your apartment, even though he's a grown man, like it kind of pays off a little bit later with like the housekeeper, whoever that's supposed to be. I wasn't quite clear if that's I'm assuming that it was a housekeeper, but and his landlord and things like that. But sidebar, I love watching him like patrol like in a cartoon, where he's got like the rifle like in his arm and he's just pacing back and forth.
That was a good bit.
It was a good bit. But no, it worked for me. I thought it was a nice little catalyst, and surprisingly less combative than I feel like a lot of like you think to like Singing in the Rain, where a lot of these sort of meet cutes, like the two principals are a good bit more combative than we see here, which was kind of refreshing as well. So
they're very lukewarm at first.
Yeah, which I mean, understandable, right?
Yeah.
Where the hell am I? How did I get here? Who the fuck are you? Like, all good questions.
It's way more grounded, again, for having a ridiculous plot premise. So I love that. But yeah, let's talk about that quick switch where Joe Bradley is running into work late, tries to convince his boss that he definitely was at that press interview with the princess. Fails because obviously she wasn't there. And upon seeing a picture of her, realizes that that's the lady back in his apartment, and decides to pitch a much more involved, juicy interview that he's going to work on getting from her. I feel like this made me very quickly hate him, but I'm curious to see how you guys felt about that scene.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to have like the payoff that it did, because I feel like so much of what makes the ending to this film so sweet is what his initial plan is. And I just kind of assumed it was going to be, oh, this is how you put these two people together. Again, not knowing that it was going to buck the formula, so to speak. I was like, well, this will be the end of the second act, going into the third act confrontation. She's going to find out the true motives. They split up, then they're going to reconcile. So I thought it was very generic and sort of like, and then of course how it all plays out is wonderful. So that's my take on it.
I kind of felt the same way. I was expecting the same sort of reveal to happen later for the sake of conflict, and that didn't happen. So the setup in and of itself, I guess, was necessary for the sake of the plot, and just to have him try to be smooth with his boss and try to demonstrate his belief that he is very smooth, although it's not always the case. And clearly he's not good with money, because he keeps giving it away and then also like trying to make it back and then just giving more away.
And he's making these huge bets with his boss, like
Sucks at poker too. We see like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
although he does fold, I guess, like at the end. But
because he's got no
yeah.
money, Chris.
hey, well, he's like, "Oh, it's my last 1,000." I was like, "That's cool." And then he's like, "Oh, it's $1.50." And I was like, "Yeah, bro. All right."
Yeah,
Anyway,
it depends on where you are in the world as to how much money you've got.
yeah.
Well, then like he talks about like I'm gonna go back to the United States and get a real job as a reporter, and you'll see. And I'm like, dude, not with the way you keep spending cash. Like, damn, you would have been there already if you hadn't been like giving it all away or gambling it all away. But I digress. But yeah, so that was pretty much on par with what Chris was saying.
Yeah, I kept laughing at that scene where he's trying to like pull it over on his boss and the suspense builds as he just commits more and more to the lie. I thought it was great. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. But yeah, so he goes back to Princess Anne, calls up his friend Irving, who's a photographer, so he can come and take pictures, and goes from there to kind of plan this grand day together. I think Irving finally catches up to them at this lunch place, right? Which leads to another rather slapstick scene where Anne and Joe are lying to one another about who they are and what they do. I think Joe claimed he did like pharmaceutical or chemistry sales or something like that.
It was like
And
fertilizer or something. Yeah,
yeah, and
right.
Anne claimed she was just like a student who had run away.
Hmm.
And when Irving comes in, he is not aware of this and keeps spilling the beans while Joe spills other things on him. That is a recurring gag in the film. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but it got a little bit old for me towards the end.
Yeah, I just felt bad for him. I'm like, why is he your friend? Like, he just needs to go take photographs and stay out of Joe's business because Joe is going to do him bad. Like, Joe's not going to pay him.
Right?
I don't care what Joe tells you, he's not going to pay you. And you're going to have to buy a new suit. Like, every time you hang out, like, it just got obnoxious to me where it was like, you can't just say, I need to talk to you for like 30 seconds. Let's just, he's got to do this whole slapstick thing. That was the only part of this film that felt so out of place and obnoxious. And I just felt like he got done wrong by Joe because of that. He tried to actually be a really nice guy and help Joe out. And Joe just like takes him for granted way too much.
That's kind of a
Absolutely.
great running gag, like when it happens again. And
Chris
he
is all
even
about
tried.
it.
It is like, I mean, for physical comedy's sake, and a little bit thick-headed too. When he's like, "Yeah, we talked about that." Like, other words, like, I'm not just like tripping you over. Like, just shut the fuck up already, like, dude. Like, there was a reason I did this before. Yeah, I'm a sucker for good physical comedy, and I think the best sort of like stunt, for lack of a better word, I think is when he is like leaning back in his chair and he like just like tips it over at the little bistro or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Poor Irving. Poor Irving. But he does take really good photos. We see them go on many different adventures in Rome. I'm not going to recap all of them, but if you guys have a favorite you want to talk about, I would love to hear it of their little adventures before they get to that dance at the end of the night.
It's
I
kind of
like the scene
tough.
where they. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No,
You
no,
were
no,
saying
no, no.
something.
Go ahead. Go ahead, man. No, I'm
Uh,
pondering.
you're good. I can't remember the name of what the sculpture was, or like the giant head out of stone. What was
The
where it
mouth
was
of
like you
truth
had
or
to,
something like that. Right.
yeah, it was like you had to put your hand, or if you wanted to put your hand in there, it was like if you're a liar, you'll get bit, or you'll lose your hand, right? It was like if you tell a lie and you put your hand in there, you'll lose your hand. And so like both Joe and Anne are kind of like, we're both lying to each other. Do I do it? And then Joe sticks his hand in there and then just like spooks her by pretending to have it bit or something. And I don't know. I just found that to be very because you knew what was probably going to happen. So part of it was like the expectation of getting that payout or payoff. And I don't know, just the way they all reacted, I thought was very charming. And so I got what I wanted out of it. And I have no regrets of wanting that. So I just like that scene.
I thought it was endearing.
The Vespa and like the subsequent like speeding ticket court scene, just because it's such a novel thing for her to like maybe be in trouble that she's not even worried about it really per se. Just thought it was cute, and Audrey Hepburn really sells the shit out of like the elation and the I don't know, invigorating feeling that she has. Like there's just like such a sense of freedom on her face, and um it's great. I think, I mean, I can see, probably, I don't know who she was up against, why she would have won an Academy Award, for this movie, but there's just a sense of pure joy, and yeah, the subsequent, like, I don't know, trial or whatever you would call that is also quite cute.
I'm sorry to interject. I just wanted to say I am not surprised that for somebody that likes the slapstick, that was going to be your choice for these aggrieved people in Rome who have their shit destroyed by some crazy lady on a Vespa. And now that's the choice. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm sorry, man. Please continue.
Will, you're gonna look down on me now, but I kind of agree with Chris, but specifically it's the after the court scene. It's very brief, but it's when they're leaving and they think they're fully out of the court and they just start snickering and kind of like laughing about it. And then they see there's one more guard and they just immediately straighten up. And then as soon as they're actually out of the courthouse, they start like sniggering and giggling again. Because I don't know, it just like shows that they're like a team now, little band of misfits and mischief.
Troublemakers.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was sweet to me.
Yeah, very, very sweet.
But yeah, they have a full day in Rome. Irving's taking photos, and I think it's the same night that Joe's like decides to go. I missed the haircut scene. Forget where in the chronology that is, but yeah, Princess Anne, when she first like leaves Joe to kind of like head out on her own after awaking from her long slumber as a sleeping beauty. Lots of Disney princess tropes. There's a little bit of every Disney princess in Princess Anne, and I like that too. Yeah. But she goes to get her hair cut, and she gets a pretty radical change from her long locks to a cute bob. I would call it a bob. And the hairdresser invites her to a party that evening, and she and Joe go there after their day of adventures, and that is where menacing men in suits starts to surround them, and one of them cuts in to dance with her and then whispers something very menacing to her. I think it's just her name, but she is shocked and recoils, and Joe starts punching people like James Bond or something.
That whole scene was like straight out of Indiana Jones, dude. Like you could throw some John Williams like music over that, and it is very much like Indy and Marion in the market, just everyone throwing right hooks and left crosses, and yeah.
It's really great. I love that scene too. And Joe manages to get her away from them, and they both tumble into like a river or lake or something that the party happened to be happening right next to, because plot. And they swim to safety, and that's kind of where like all the romantic tension that's been building up finally releases, and they have a lovely little kiss. So I loved the fight scene, and I also loved that they kind of like earned that little piece of romance. But what'd you guys think?
Yeah, it's cool. Lots of action, stunt work, some comedy with the guitar, which leads to a great photo in her commemorative album. I'm sure we'll get to bashing the bodyguard over. And I think it's important too to like her character development, because it shows that she initially sort of rebuffs like the attempts to bring her back into the fold, so to speak, and she has to make that decision on her own for her own reasons, not just because they want her back. And it's nice to see Joe kind of like, I don't know if he really fully understands who these people are, but you got to imagine the sheer number of people that are trying to like he probably understands. So maybe the romantic in me believes that he wants to like try to fight on her behalf to like give her what she wants and let her make that choice on her own. So if that's not what she wants, so it's nice thought too.
About
bet
ready
you
to
will.
start an international incident up on this boat trip. When you see these, like, I don't know, these men in black, for better term, like, you know, Big Willie style is coming down. They're gonna like try and take her off the boat. I don't know. I just thought it was funny that it was like then the Italian police want to get involved and stop them, and then it's just like an all-out brawl. I did like that one of the guys in black was like kind of getting into the music though. He was having a good time for like a minute, and then his boss or like his buddy was just like, "No, you know, like we're here with a mission, man. You know, like focus." And he gets like super serious and starts like eyeing everybody, you know. And so that was I liked it. I thought the whole scene was charming. I thought it was funny when Irving was telling Anne to like take another swing with the guitar because he missed the first shot. And he's like, no, do it again, you know, like, and then it gets like the best shot out of it. And then yeah, when they swim to shore, when Joe and Anne swim to shore and they have that moment together, I was like, yep, I could go with that. And so that was the payoff for that, I feel like was also earned and was in keeping with sort of where we saw it going. We just, you know, it was just a question of what moment it was going to be. And so yeah, I think, you know, after all the excitement of escaping a bunch of people trying to capture you, it's like every action movie ever. Of course, there's going to be like, you know, sexual tension that's just like right here in your face. So why not just make out? You know,
Yeah,
relieve
I
some
mean,
stress.
and
Yeah.
also just like any doubts that she was having about his intentions, I'm pretty sure like seeing him beat up a bunch of dudes probably
Yeah,
made her
exactly.
feel a bit safer and more comfortable. But yeah, I like that it was earned. I like that it wasn't her just like because at the start of the movie she's also trying to like kind of seduce him, but in a I've only seen this done in movies naive way. And
Mhm.
so it was nice for them to finally come to it as like in a more mature moment.
Yeah. Do
If
we ever
still
actually
ridiculous.
know, like, it's true. Do we ever actually know, like, what the age difference is supposed to be between? I know you mentioned she was sort of like younger at the beginning, but I don't know if I ever really caught, like, or if we knew for the sake of the story, what the age difference might be between them.
I don't think we do.
Okay.
I can tell you so Gregory Peck would have been like late 30s, it looks like. I'm terrible at math, so I can't give you the exact, but late 30s.
And I know Audrey Hepburn was in her 20s then.
Okay.
Not
But I could,
unusual though. You see
Mm,
that a lot in this era of like,
yeah.
yeah.
movies. It wasn't super egregious, but yeah.
Even today, I think there's usually like a 10 plus year age gap between male and female leads in most movies.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like Roger Moore in the last James Bond movie he ever did. I mean, I think we're okay. So
Yeah.
James Bond, it's a great a great franchise, but historically, like at least like, for like the so-called classic era, not really oh, what's the word? Progressive views of like of women.
In fact, I might call it regressive.
Yep.
Maybe
Oh,
just a bit.
dude, I watched Casino Royale over the weekend, and man, I got brought back to some other stuff that I was like, damn, I forgot. This is like when
Oh,
they
the
turned James Bond into a bully. My bad. I forgot
Daniel
he's
Craig.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't remember him being this like. I remember he was rough, but I don't remember him just being this dark and rough. And I was like, oh yeah, this was back in like the early 2000s, and I'm like,
That was not even
yeah,
that bad compared to something like, say, like I mean, Dr. No or Goldfinger.
I
There's some
like.
sequences where it's like I'm like, I don't know how much consent's happening here. Like, like, I mean,
None.
genuinely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's some rough Sean Connery moments in those movies where you're like, no. She said no. No means nobody.
Then the title, mate, Dr. No.
Oh
Anyway.
no.
See, whole character named after it. He's still no. What did he do? What did he do?
And on that note,
Pulling it back, stepping back to the story, to the much more wholesome tale that we were watching.
Much more wholesome, as consensual as you can be with two people with hidden identities.
They
Does
both
that
had a good
cancel out? Is
time.
that how that works? I don't know what like the chemistry is, you know.
That is the movie logic, I think, honestly. It's just that they're both lying, it's fine.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it is a cute, fun, flirty holiday dalliance. Like, who needs rules?
Yeah. When in Rome, literally, right?
Oh.
Hey.
Yeah, so they go back to Joe's, and I think it's like the next day she decides to leave. This is where I was getting a little fuzzy on the sequence of events. But yeah, she basically hears like a radio broadcast conveying that like her country is very concerned about the health of Princess Anne, because the cover story is that she's been sick for days, and she realizes that she actually does want to, or at least feels like she has to, fulfill her duties as a princess, and decides to go back. Of course, she just tells Joe that she has to go back to school, and tells him where to drop her off, and begs him not to like see where she's actually going. And it seemed like he respected that by and large, even though of course he already knows.
Yeah.
And she leaves, and of course we know that's not the last time they see each other, because Joe has a job to do in terms of interviewing her. And he goes back to, I think it was Mr. Hennessy was the like publication owner. Goes back to Mr. Hennessy, who is pressuring him for that story, and is like convinced that he definitely has it. It's gotten rumors, and Irving's even there with the photos, and that's where we get some more slapstick moments where he's trying to show Mr. Hennessy the photos, and Joe keeps tripping him because Joe has decided that he actually doesn't want to publish a story. He tells Irving that there is no story after Mr. Hennessy leaves, and the movie ends by them going to her delayed kind of press conference, them looking at each other actually as themselves for the first time, and Irving kind of covertly handing her the photos as a travel album, and her and Joe exchange knowing looks and pleasantries, and that's kind of it. They never acknowledge what happened, and she retreats. Joe lingers in the chamber, and the final shot is him just walking out of the palace grounds. So definitely not the ending that one would expect from a rom-com like this, but I loved it, especially that long ending shot with him just kind of not in a necessarily sad way, just kind of a melancholy way, just slowly walking away. What do you guys think?
That I thought it was pure perfection. I think like the facial acting, there's just some micro gestures of like nods or like shaking it just to let her know, like, don't worry, like this is not like blackmail, it's not going to be, there's nothing for you to worry about, and like the trust that they've sort of built up, and the gesture of taking something that was gonna be almost like a muckraking like piece and like turning it into like a really sweet, like, here's a little scrapbook of like this perfect day that we had together, and it's for your eyes only. It's just fantastic. Again, it's that payoff of like using a plot device that keeps the two of them together and really doing something smart with it and making like a strong emotional connection. But I just love where he's sort of the last man standing up at that little barrier separating the throne, and it's just a beat too long, you know, where he's there. It's that last look that you, I don't know, give a apartment or home that you're moving out of, or like something. I just, man, it worked so well for me. So I loved it.
I'd have to agree with Chris on those. I think that it was really pleasant to find, like, the conflict wasn't that they find out about each other having lied. in the moment where she's thinking about going back to the palace. It's that she just feels like she needs to go back. And so they don't have the reveal there. And there's no, the very sort of expected trope that we see so much in later, romantic comedies where somebody finds out, oh, you've been lying to me about this. Well, I hate you now, kind of a thing,
Right.
and then to have the resolution later, like Chris was talking about earlier. And so it was nice to have, that make logical sense for why she goes back. And then for him to understandably have reservations about going ahead with the story he wanted to do. And then to have that very sweet moment where they both recognize what they've been doing and the facial expressions, like Chris mentioned. And then that she's not necessarily, she doesn't look like she's off put by it. She doesn't take offense to it having had happened because, everybody was sort of pretending, but also having such a great time together. And to get those photos and not to be, because part of me thought, oh, she'll, when she realizes that all of her, those moments where he's messing with that cigar lighter, or the cigarette lighter, that he's really taking photos of her. And then, that it's going to be, that'll be something that she gets frustrated about or feels like, and regardless of where you may lie on the idea of somebody secretly taking photos of somebody else without their consent is definitely an item to talk about. It was pleasantly surprising that was not the response. It was here, I'm sharing these with you, these are yours. And then that it was looked at as something to remember the experience by rather than to feel like somebody was taken advantage of. And so that was also very pleasantly surprising. And then just to have it end. And I thought, yeah, this feels more grown up and logical to me than a lot of the other sorts of overly dramatic romantic comedies or dramas or whatever you might see. And so I was just like, yeah, this has oddly enough, even though they don't end up together for the sake of what we see in the film, this felt like the right ending, and it still felt good coming out of it. So it's my takeaway from that.
Yeah, I think mature is a great word for this because it's two people that recognize that this is a perfect day because neither of them are being the people they have to be almost all the time. And that it's not the kind of thing that they could feasibly extend. Like they have to go back to reality, and reality is not compatible with each other. I mean, she's this rich princess and he's an expat with money issues. And yeah, trying to make that work would be a nightmare. She'd have to reveal that she'd run away instead of actually being sick. He'd probably get in trouble with his newspaper. It's a lot. And I like that this movie is making a great argument for just like having the perfect day with someone and leaving it at that. And carrying those memories as photos. I think it's really nice. And it was cool to see Princess Anne mature a bit in terms of like how she treats her work, but also how she approaches love, and also to see Joe grow up a bit in terms of seeing something like more valuable than money, even if it's as fleeting as money has been for him.
I also loved her assertiveness, like with the staff, when she has the little soliloquy at the end, where she's like, listen, like, I know I have a fucking duty to perform. That's why I'm here. That's the only reason I'm here. So go ahead and bye-bye. Like, let me, like, leave me be. And like, I don't need you to like wait and explain. And I think they sort of understand and come to terms with like, oh, like it's clicked for her. She understands. And like, we don't need to like fret about her every second of the day. I love that. That was a good little moment. No milk and crackers. Get your ass out of my room. You too. Yeah, like it was good.
Yeah, because they were not just babying her before, but they also were like punishing her like a child too, like at the station. And I think this is the only way she could come back after an episode like that. Like I hope that wasn't a regular thing they did with her, but It's good she asserted herself as an independent person. So that's the end of the film. I'd love to talk about like cinematography a bit since we did discuss those jump cuts. We've alluded to the fact that they're just kind of odd, but Chris, since this was your idea to talk about in the first place, would you like to kind of expound on that first?
I don't have a whole lot to offer just because I'm not sure why. Like I said, I think it might have been continuity errors or like maybe just flubbed lines or something where they kept the cameras rolling. I will offer on the cinematography aspect that I love, and they make a big deal about it in the opening credits, that this was filmed all on location in Rome. It added a romanticism to it, an authenticity. Like if they'd just been standing in front of like a, at the time would have been a blue screen or like a projector like background, I don't know that it would have worked. Like it's just nice to see them move through the spaces like in real time, and it made the film feel really European to me. Like, and when I say European, I mean like I'm thinking like Italian neorealism and like French New Wave. Like it had that, which is very unique to a Hollywood film, right, of the 1950s. Like this is just not something that Hollywood did. And I think that really elevated it and set it apart from a lot of its contemporaries, like especially for a romantic comedy. But I really like that. And I think that aside from that, like having a lot of different like sets that were outdoors was quite refreshing. So whoever did the cinematography, like shout out, I mean, to just being able to shoot and what I'm assuming was probably very, very bright sunlight at times, and making that work really well. And even some of those like evening party shots, like all of that feeling very natural and not being distracting. Like it's easy to take for granted like nowadays, like, but like you compare this like with some like movies that would have been on sound stages, and there's a pretty noticeable difference. I've like, or at least it's stuff that I picked up on watching it. So I really like that.
Those are really good points.
I'm gonna have to go with continuity issues because the scene that I've got behind me, this little sorry, wrong scene, my continuity. Can I point? This little clock up here, if you're watching the YouTube video, does change time a couple of times during that little exchange that they've got. Because part of me was wondering, like, what time exactly is it that she leaves after? And then because they had talked a little bit about how late it was and when her interview was going to be, and so then when they get out into like the plaza area and they're chatting and she's had gelato, and that clock tower for me, man, was, I don't know, it was OCD in me. I'm just like watching it to see if it's going to change or not, and it did. So I'm going to have to go with continuity for you, Chris. I'm trying to remember the two. You guys will have to remind me because I vaguely remember at least one moment. You said there were a couple, and so it was like, was it Joe was moving somewhere, and then it was like he jumped a little bit forward somewhere. I'm trying to remember where it was. Was he walking up stairs or something, or was he? What were the two scenes you noticed?
The ones I noticed were all like pretty big outside crowd scenes. Obviously one of the main characters was in them, but I think it's most noticeable just because the crowd had moved a lot.
Okay. I probably blinked or something, and then it was like I didn't catch it. But yeah, I felt like there was one where it was just Joe, because I feel like I know vaguely. I'm trying to remember where it was, but yeah, okay, I got you. I'll have to go back and watch it again. It's just what it comes down to.
There we go. Is that wait? Hold on. Is that clock tower? You throw your popcorn.
Yeah. I just can't. I can't deal with it. No, I think actually, truthfully, for shooting on location, I think I can overlook the fact that the clock may change position several times in the same shot. So
I didn't mean to speak over you, Chris. What were you saying?
Oh no, it happens from time to time. Like we're pretty good about it on this podcast. It's just inevitable, especially like remotely. It's hard, I think. But no, the weather was conspiring against me a little bit. Like there was a nice like thunderstorm with like the rain pelting against my windows when I was watching this, and I was really cozy. And I was like, the first one I saw was like, am I like a little drowsy? Like what? And I actually rewound it to to make
Yeah.
sure that like my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. And then I was like, okay, cool. It's not just me.
Rewound.
Rewound, yeah.
I'm sorry. I just find it funny.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I know
You're good.
exactly what you mean, and I'm 100% for that word, but
I don't know. Rewinded it. I don't know. It just sounds weird. I don't know, but yeah.
I went back on my streaming by about 30 seconds. Yeah, there's nothing that really we were. I don't know what term you would use to fill. Yeah. I clicked back. Yeah.
I clicked the arrow that points to the left, and
I pulled a Doc Brown. And I went,
But I didn't swipe. I just clicked. To be clear, no. Nice.
Oh god. Yeah, for cinematography, I enjoyed the slow pace and all the like establishing shots of the city. I feel like that's what contributed to it feeling more European and more like you really were in Rome. I know it definitely got like slow at certain times, but I appreciated the lingering shots. I have to give another shout out just to that final shot of Joe lingering and then walking away, because as much as I loved that ending, I could not help but watch over his shoulder looking to see if she came back out the whole time he was
yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful.
We're primed for that, right? Like
Right?
to go like she's gonna come dashing around the corner and leap the stanchions and yeah.
Or just say something. Because I agree, I was waiting for it too. And it's you're angled for it, and everybody else has left the room, all the everybody else left, it's just quiet. So yeah. That was beautiful. It was great. And just like the from having it the low angle shot to just see how huge everything feels in that room too was great.
You guys have any last thoughts?
No, you should just see this movie. Like audience members, like if you don't watch these like in real time with us, and if you're considering skipping this, don't. Like seriously, it is fabulous. It will subvert your expectations, and I think it's timeless. I know it's milk or wine. I don't know if you're gonna do this, but this is wine all day for me, baby. This is a fine vintage right here. So.
I figured that would be unanimous, but yes, to make it formal, I also vote wine.
I apologize that I thought Cary Grant was in this film. I think that was what I threw out there in our last podcast, where I was like, "Oh, it's Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant," And so I apologize to the other Cary Grant, Gregory Peck.
To be fair, I agreed with you because I also thought that, and I've seen it.
The other Cary Grant, yeah, no, I can't. Gregory Peck's awesome. So, apologies for that, but no, I think it's a great film. I think you should see it. I think it will be pleasantly surprising. If we haven't already surprised you enough, then experience it for yourself. But I think it is. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, this is not a movie that like spoilers will make a huge difference for, in my opinion. Like it's nice to have certain things be suspenseful, but I would rewatch this in a heartbeat again. Do you guys want to play a game?
Yeah, jump cut.
Yes, we do.
Please make that happen in the edit script.
He does jump cuts all the time when we flub stuff, and they just like edited because there's a gap of space. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way. All right. Shout out to Ben Kepner again for this game, Pitch Storm. It's amazing. I am thinking 1 round, probably. Yeah. Okay, 1 round. Who wants to go first?
Can flip a coin if we
volunteer as trivia.
There we go.
But we can flip a coin too.
No, go for it, buddy.
All right. So, quick recap of this game. I have cards that say plot, cards that say character, and I will give the boys a choice of either plot or character. They'll have a few options to choose from, and then we'll get the other one on the spot and have 60 seconds to pitch it to me as a movie idea. And I will interrupt them with an additional note from one of these cards, which will make it even more chaotic. And Will, would you like to choose a plot or character?
I would like to choose a character.
All right. So you have three choices. They are topical. The world's first sentient AI, the US president, or a young politician with dreams of saving the world.
Oh, AI.
All right. I had a feeling.
To the real
So hot
AIs
right
that
now.
may analyze and codify everything from our podcast, please don't hold this against me when we have the machine uprising. All right.
It's not negative either. This card just says the world's first sentient AI.
That's true. So I'm just going to
could be
be
great.
like, yeah, I'll be really nice to it.
Okay, I'm going to pull your plot card now. When I finish reading it, you should just start pitching and I will start your timer.
Just start rambling. Okay.
Are you ready?
Cool.
Okay.
Yes.
The world's first sentient AI leads a deadly rescue mission on Mount Everest. And go.
Okay, so in the future, farther than what we are right now, when AI has developed even further, we're going to have, there's going to be conflict. It's going to be kind of like Terminator a little bit, but, you know, slightly different because we can't be completely the same as everything else. And so there's going to be one AI that's being held hostage on Mount Rushmore because obviously symbolic for the United States. That's where they're going to have like some humans that are holding out. And this one AI is very important to the... Okay, yeah.
So what if we set this during medieval times instead?
Even better. So Terminator style, they go back in time because they want to try and destroy humanity in the past. And so somehow Mount Rushmore is the point where that's the portal that takes them back in time, which is where the one AI that was holding out was at. They go back, and then humans have to join forces with people in the past. Kind of like the, what am I thinking of? More like, not Gladiator, but more like there's a movie Timeline. We'll just borrow some stuff from that too. And we'll have, you know, medieval forces trying to outsmart this technology that clearly doesn't have anything.
Can hear from you. Thank you, Mr.
Adanti. But they didn't have enough batteries, so anyway.
My people will call your people.
And scene. Jump cut. All right, thanks, guys.
That was fantastic. I can't believe I picked that card as a no.
Nice.
That was a tough one, and I'm excited for the Mount Everest Terminator.
That's right. Rushmore, Everest. I got confused. I just started throwing things out there
it's
at
fine.
some point.
It's fine. I knew what you meant.
It doesn't matter where it takes place. It just matters when it takes place. Yeah.
Well, wonderful showing. Next up, we have Chris Waterman. Would you like to choose a plot or character?
Plot for sure.
Okay. It's interesting how people always have like a go-to. I'm a character girl myself. All right. Your choices are: discovers a map leading to a legendary treasure hoard, or choose a franchise pitch, which means you choose a plot previously pitched by another player. Your movie is a Broadway adaptation of their idea.
Oh my goodness.
Or
awesome.
Option 3 tries to save the world from the zombie apocalypse.
Okay, gonna go zombies for sure.
Cool.
Love a good horror film.
All
Matches well with other genres.
Fair enough. I guess you can make anything a zombie movie if you want.
Yes.
All right. As soon as I finish reading your combined character and plot cards, I will start the timer. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. The best hacker in the world tries to save the world from the zombie apocalypse. Go.
All right. Well, this is going to be a franchise mashup because Neo from The Matrix in an alternate timeline is kept busy by the machines because a zombie outbreak happens inside of the Matrix. So picture Keanu Reeves at his computer, shit starts going crazy outside, and he knows that somewhere in the deep, dark archives of the US government, there must be information on zombie research or something, super viruses. So he starts.
Hold on. I'm loving it so far, but I have some obligations to my viewers. We need a steamy romance scene every 10 minutes, but it has to meet a PG-13 rating.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can make that work. We can make that work. So yeah, Trinity in this iteration of the Matrix is like a total nympho, like has to have it like all the time. So his task is even harder by the fact that he's got to please Trinity and also hack some of the scenes are going to be him like just at his computer like implied thrusting going on while he's like hacking into the government database trying to figure out what's going on. And that's definitely
time. Thank you, Mr. Waterman. Oh my god.
Nice.
I feel like what you just pitched is definitely the porno version of like
That's the softcore version. It's PG-13. So and it's a trilogy, right? We're gonna do the trilogy. So
yeah, absolutely.
Every movie in the trilogy has a higher and higher rating.
X is what we're going for when we finish it. Yeah.
Gotta raise the stakes, baby.
I have no idea how to pick a winner. Oh my god. See, I would actually watch Will's movie, but Chris has made me laugh harder.
It's okay. Look, the AI respects your decision and will not feel bad if you choose porno over its backstory to like the human uprising or the machine uprising against humanity. It's okay. It respects your decision.
You know what, Will? I'm gonna be like Roman Holiday and I'm gonna keep it classy and I'm gonna pick the movie I would actually see, which is your movie. So
Noise.
Hey.